All right. Hey everyone, grace, peace, and blessings. Thank you for joining me in my very first Purposeful Health session. I am privileged and I'm happy to have with me, join here today, Mascha Davis. Mascha is a board certified RDN, that's registered dietitian nutritionist. She holds an MPH, Master of Public Health from UCLA. She has a BS degree in Nutritional Science and Dietetics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Mascha is an author, TEDx speaker, entrepreneur, influencer, and humanitarian. Welcome, Mascha. Thank you so much for doing this. Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
We are going to be, guys, we're going to be discussing nutritional injustice. But before we dive into our conversation, Mascha, you have a very interesting and inspiring background. Can you tell us more about your background and what led you to this healing path of nutrition? Because I consider what you do to be a form of healing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction as well. That was great. Well, my journey it's been, quite a winding path. I think it began when my family came to the States as political refugees from Ukraine when I was 7. Even though I didn't realize it then, how much that would impact me, but it really shaped me in a lot of ways and ultimately inspired me to go into nutrition, to go into public health, and to pursue something where I could make an impact on people and really help a lot of people. And that's what ultimately inspired me to go to Africa, where I spent 5 years working on programs to treat and prevent malnutrition in women and children. And then after 5 years, I came back to LA, which is my home base, and launched my private practice, wrote my book, and that's where I am now. Now I'm promoting the book and launching my new food product called Mini Fish.
Wow, that is exciting. And the thing is, you're so young, and I'm just feeling that this is just the very beginning for you. So you're just getting started. So it seems like you have quite a resume already, quite impressive. So jumping into our conversation, you mentioned that, you've done some work in Africa and also you've done work in India. What are some of the lessons that you have learned from your time in Africa and India, and some of the issues that people in those regions face nutritionally? And can you draw like any parallel?
Oh, it just cut out a little bit. I think we're back.
Are we back?
I think we're back. Yes. I think you were saying parallels. Can I draw parallels to the US, right?
Right.
Okay. Yes. So there's so much to say about what I learned there and what I realized. In terms of, our topic and what we're focusing on, food justice, food injustice, food insecurity, access to high quality food, so much of this begins at the government and at the legislative level, right? Like if those systems are out of whack, if the legislation is out of whack, if there's injustice and a lack of attention to justice, because it may not even be always this conscious injustice, even though sometimes it very much is, and it very much has been in the US, in Africa as well. But even with current legislation and what's happening, even if there isn't a conscious effort to create injustice, the lack of attention to justice and how to reverse some of what's happened and some of the injustice that's already been created, like this long-standing injustice that we've had in this country in the creation of food deserts, in the structural racialization, and access to food and transportation and education.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many parallels between the US and other countries where there's massive inequality, which leads to poor nutrition, and that leads to poor health outcomes. And, it's this huge domino effect.
That's very interesting that you brought up that it starts at the very top and with the government and how everything is structured. I am from the South Bronx, which is the poorest congressional district in the U.S. right now. I'm specifically from the Morrisania-Crotona section of the Bronx, and just looking at the health profile of that community, they have the worst health outcomes of all New Yorkers. Residents of the Bronx on average live 5 years less than all other New Yorkers. So, when it comes to diabetes, when it comes to cancer, when it comes to hypertension, you name it across the board, people in the Bronx are doing the worst. And when you look at New York City as
those numbers are just like staggering. Like I want repeat them again, like 5 years less, like
5 years less. Yeah.
A 5 year shorter lifespan.
It's astounding. It's astounding. And, it's like these things have been, like you said earlier, that, comes from it's just a structural issue. And when you look at big cities like New York, where you find nutritional injustice, if you go to the Upper East Side, it's like one of the wealthiest places in the U.S. And then Park Avenue, that's millionaires, billionaires row. And you go further down, uptown, Park Avenue, you get the Bronx, and have some of the poorest people there. So you have all of these discrepancies and basically the food injustice. But you look at a big city like New York City, which was founded by colonization by the Dutch in the 1600s, and you find that because it was founded by colonization, you also have racist policies that basically formed the city, and one of them was redlining. So you have the division there, and the whole point of separating people is to basically perpetuate injustice and inequality. So you have the wealthier white communities where all of the funds and investments go to, and then you have Black and brown communities that are neglected and underfunded. And so what you mentioned earlier, the food desert. So when I was growing up, big food desert. I mean, it's a little bit better now. So when you look at places like the Bronx, where there's 10 bodegas for every supermarket. So for those of you watching, if you don't know what a bodega is, it's basically a small convenience store. And what they have in those small convenience stores, just nothing healthy. It's just a lot of ultra processed foods, and people go there because it's convenient. And when you don't have access, as you stated earlier, to fresh produce and fruits and vegetables, then you're going to go to the bodegas. You walk in, you hear the salsa music going, you see the cats going, running around, but then they have the packaged ultra processed foods, but they also have cooked foods. They have bacon, egg, and cheese. Sandwiches and burgers and fries, nothing healthy at all. Cafe con leche, but so you have these issues where people, as you mentioned earlier, they don't have access to fresh, foods, nutritional foods, and they don't make the best options. And what I have observed, particularly in the Bronx, unfortunately, Mascha, price gouging. So I shop all over. I'm based in New York, so I shop all over. I shop in the Bronx. I'll shop in Westchester. I shop on the Upper East Side, affluent, and I shop in the hood. So what happens is, I call it hoodflation. Like, they'll jack up the prices of healthier products and make poorer people pay more. So there have been times when I have been in Whole Foods in Midtown or on the Upper East Side or in Fairway, and gotten cheaper prices for salad kits and avocados and things like that than in the Bronx. And I one time I almost got into a fight with someone over a salad kit in the Bronx because they were charging like 60 cents more. So you have like this historic like this historic practice of price gouging in poor communities, especially in big urban centers. And I think it's really, really wrong. So it's just, crazy, just crazy.
Wow, that is crazy.
So just thinking about, how things evolved from a structural level. How has nutrition, if we just look at history, how has nutrition evolved in the United States?
Yeah. So, I mean, there have been so many changes in how Americans eat in general. I was looking at some studies that were done, comparing like the 1970s to the 80s, to the 90s to now. And I think this is not surprising to anyone, watching this, but our consumption overall of calories has gone way up. Our consumption of grains has gone up. Our consumption of oils and fats has also increased. And fruits and vegetables were already quite low. They weren't, nearly high enough. Even in the 70s, and they actually went down slightly. So, I mean, across the board, there's just a lot of issues, with how we eat in this country in general. But I think in terms of the food justice piece, that's even more problematic, and something that I think there's more and more conversations about it happening now, but I think still not enough.
Right.
Because it's something that's so prevalent. Like, I think in all cities in our country, this is a huge issue. The communities of color, poor communities they don't have access to the same types of food, to the same quality food. And I think it's a human rights issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just to your point, particularly going back to the Bronx, because I think the Bronx is a good case study.
Yeah.
If people want to get, healthier food, they have to travel. That means that they have to, pay train fare and bus fare that they do not have. So you're talking about people who are already rent burdened and underemployed or unemployed. So, it becomes a real issue. And that's why they go to places like the fast food places and the bodegas, because, if you want healthier foods, if you want to go to Whole Foods, which is, in Manhattan, in the city, then you have to travel. So people don't have cars, in places like New York. So, people are not going to go through those changes. But if we're able to maybe, bring more healthier foods into these communities, it'll be helpful to the people and basically improve everyone's health as a whole, and basically help our nation, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I was thinking about the whole evolution of nutrition, and, basically what we're eating now is like sort of like a military diet, so just, things being canned and boxed, that stems from World War II. And ammonium nitrate, a lot of that was left over. It was an abundance of that after World War II. And that's a chemical compound that helps to make bombs. And some enterprising people discovered, hey, listen, we can use this as fertilizer and to accelerate the growth of corn, crops like corn. So, and also, certain nerve gases used as pesticides. So what we're eating is the remnants of war. So I think that has to change too. But, just looking at also the evolution and looking at communities of color, and particularly, I think my family is also a good case study. It wasn't always like that. As you stated earlier, throughout the decades, it just got progressively worse as far as what people eat and how we eat. My family, like many other Black American, African American families, when they came out of slavery, they went into sharecropping, and, basically it's a land tenant situation where a family comes on and they grow a crop and they share a percentage with the landowner and, exchange for living there. And, my family, the percentage that they got wasn't much at all. But the great thing about it is that they were able to grow their own, fruits and vegetables. And they basically grew what they ate. They grew things like kale and spinach and, collard greens, which is a staple in the Black American diet, and okra and watermelon and pecans and soybeans and corn. So, they fished and, if you want eggs, you just go to the chicken, you want milk, you just milk the cow. So, they were basically farmers, and, how they ate changed when, we have the first migration, that happened in the early 20th century where, Blacks from the South went up north. And my grandparents went during the second migration, which was during the 40s and 50s. And that's when the diets really began to change. And so my parents went from, Virginia, my grandparents went from Virginia to North Carolina up to Harlem, which was Black Mecca. And, according to what my mom told me, she went from eating fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, they made everything. My family even made soap. They're very industrious people. So she went from like farm life to living in a big city and eating things out of a can, eating, things out of a box. I mean, they didn't know any better. My grandmother knew, you needed a starch, a vegetable, and a protein. She knew that much, but everything began to shift and change. And I think with that shift and change, so that, the health of Black Americans, it just deteriorated. And even for my relatives that remained in the South, in North Carolina and Virginia, they came out of the fields, they came out of the farm, they stopped farming. My family, they farmed tobacco, they grew tobacco. And so, they moved from farming, they became, carpenters and housekeepers and cooks. And those are the occupations that they had, bricklayers, railroad workers. So with those changes, as they came away from growing their own food, so did, how the way they ate. So they too began to eat the ultra processed boxed foods, canned foods. And I think that contributes a lot to what, the poor health about, communities of color now. And even for people who migrate here from various parts of the world, from the Caribbean, from Africa, South America, Central America, they come here, even Europe, they come here. And what I've noticed is that people's health get worse. It gets worse, even though they're eating their traditional foods from their, from their lands. I think the soil is like deplete of nutrients, vitamins, nutrients, and minerals. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think we have a soil issue here too in the U.S.
I think that's all true. Yes. I mean, your knowledge is incredible, and your family story is so fascinating. And yeah, I agree with so much of what you said. And up to now with, yes, all these issues with our soil even, and this continuation of these like low quality processed foods, being marketed and being sold to these communities, which continues to propagate this inequality and leading to, all these health issues that we're seeing.
That's an excellent point that you just brought up, the whole marketing thing, because if you go on low income areas
that's
now,
a whole other one.
You'll see the billboards everywhere. It's like some fast food. And even if you sit and watch BET, that's Black Entertainment Television for some of you who don't know, the Black channel. And one day I just sat there and just watched. I didn't watch any particular program. I just wanted to see what they were marketing to Black people. It was mainly fast food, junk food, and all of the commercials, and cars. So they want Black people to buy cars, so get in their cars, buy a car, get in their car, and to go to their nearest fast food restaurant. That was the message that I got just from watching the marketing. So that's a really excellent point, like how they market to us, because you can go into any, low income or communities of color, and you'll find, marketing for, a lot of fast food and liquor, alcohol, a lot of that too, and that you would find in, like more affluent neighborhoods.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really interesting, that's a really important point. Yeah. And now it's like, how does this shift? Like, how do we come up with solutions and ways to shift this?
And that's my next question for you. How do we better serve communities of color and basically improve their health outcomes?
Yes. This is
Big question.
this is such a
Big question.
And this is something that I'm not like the ultimate expert in by any means, but it's something I'm really passionate about. I think just having these conversations, defining food deserts, defining food insecurity, which I think we should do before we end this video, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know. Defining structural racialization. I printed out all these definitions just so that we could, talk about them and reference them. I think starting with that, and then getting more people in power who represent these communities.
Yes.
Right, who represent these neighborhoods, so that they can help to enact this legislative change that needs to start to happen. Like, I think a lot of this, there's of course the grassroots movements. I think they're equally important as, what's happening on the legislative level, and they're going to impact what happens on the legislative level. But all of these things are critical and need to change, and just having more conversations like this, right, with people who are in the health and wellness industry. One of the other things I'm doing, some of the other conversations that I'm having, are about how to diversify dietetics, how to diversify our field, because how can we provide information and have cultural competency if our message isn't, if it's not diverse enough and educated enough to really speak to everyone.
Excellent point. Definitely need diversity in that field. I agree with you. Definitely in communities of color, we need people that's representing us, in politics and Congress, that really care about health and the health of the people, the communities that they are serving and representing. That's definitely needed. But for me, I see like a different aspect to it as well, the aspect of personal responsibility. And but with that, people need to get informed. There needs to be like a more like of a nutritional literacy, health literacy. And I think that's really, really lacking in these communities, Black and brown communities. Like, also with that, bilingual advocates, people who speak Spanish and English, coming into these communities, because I mentioned the Bronx earlier, my hometown, 60% Hispanic. So, so basically, we need more advocacy. We need more health literacy. And I think if we're looking at particularly, where I grew up, Black and brown communities, I grew up, my neighborhood was predominantly Black and Puerto Rican. And what I've noticed about our cultures, Black and Hispanic cultures, that we're very relational. Relationship is very important to our culture. There's definitely some differences, but relationship is important. So if we have advocacies and people coming into our community, giving us information that has established some sort of relationship there, then I think people will better be able to be open and receptive to it. And even to practitioners, doctors and nurses and, hospitals, just once again, a diversity and people having cultural sensitivity. And, because for me personally, it has taken me a long time to find a doctor that would address my health needs. I think many of us, we will go to the doctor and he or she will kind of like look at us as objects, and I've been in a situation where I felt like objectified or not listened to. And going back to, the need for, bilingual representation, because you have people who comes in who don't speak English, and, they're trying to get healthcare and help. And usually when that's the case, they have to bring in a family member who speaks English, and they can't always go into the exam room, so they may not know. So that's that disconnect right there. Mm-hmm. So, but you have, unfortunately, not all doctors, but you have some doctors who don't have that sensitivity there, and they don't understand the culture of the people, and that relationship is important. So when you're talking to me about my health, look me in the eye. like I'm a person, also, get an understanding of the culture and the people that you're dealing with. I think that's very helpful. And I think then people will be more open to receiving information about nutrition and improving their health outcomes if, I think there were some shifts and changes within your field and in, various fields of medicine. So.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's so many things that need to shift.
Yeah, definitely.
But just having these conversations and educating providers too, right? Like having providers realize that they may be perpetuating some of these issues,
yes.
Even unconsciously.
Right, because you have a lot of poorer people who are afraid to go to the doctor, or they don't feel comfortable, especially men, don't go as often, particularly Black men don't go as often as they should. And in the Black community, if you're looking at life expectancy, going back to life expectancy, the average for Americans in general is 78 years, and Black men live the least, and the average for life expectancy for a Black male is 69 years. So Black men are losing a whole decade of life. So what can we do to fix that? So, and just in general, Black people live on average 5 years less than all other Americans. So it's kind of like parallels the data with the Bronx. So I think that's, it's pretty tragic, but I think that there does need to be some sort of personal responsibility, and just a change of how communities of color see food. I get teased a lot in my family. I've changed my diet like 5 or 6 years ago, and they call it soulish food. Not soul food, but soulish food. Because what I do is I just substitute, like the bad stuff with some good nutritional, alternatives in the food, and it's like soul food sort of, but it's a lot healthier. So I think
what's like an example? I just want to hear. I'm curious.
Instead of cooking with the fat back and with the pork, I'll basically cook, if I'm making some greens or something like that, I'll use like a turkey neck or some olive oil. So like really clean, sort of like nutritionally dense products, high quality ingredients, things like that. So basically taking, not taking the flavor out, because I think that's a lot of the fear with, the Black and Hispanic communities is like, okay, I'm eating healthy. That means it's going to taste bad. That means it's not going to, the spices are going to be going, yeah, you can still have some Puerto Rican and Dominican flavors and blacken it up and it still be delicious and healthy. So I think the attitude, the mentality around healthy food has to change in the community. But as you stated earlier, we need people coming in to educate people and let them know, hey, yeah, you can use some adobo, but, take out some of the pork and the grease and, some of the salts, but you can use some herbs and make it taste delicious,
Yep. I feel like that's a really good book title. I think that could be your book, Soulish Food.
I have to give my cousin Rachel credit for that, because she calls my food soulish food. But she told me the same thing. She said it could be a good cookbook.
That is such a good food. Book title.
Yeah, soulish food. So that's basically what I eat. But when I changed my diet, I was like borderline for everything and high blood pressure. I'm predisposed to all of the bad stuff, and I'm a much healthier person. I get my labs done, and no high cholesterol, no high blood pressure, weight's good, like everything's good, and I just want to keep my biomarkers good, and it's these things could be changed, and people's lives can be transformed through nutrition. But the community doesn't know that. They don't know that eating the ultra processed foods is basically destroying their bodies. And I think going back to the whole justice issue, I think particularly for Black people, because fundamentally, when you think about racism in the United States, it's fundamentally anti-Black. And anybody that's in close proximity of us, they get the brunt of racism too. But I think a form of empowerment is to take care of yourself, and basically, as I have preached many times before in other videos, radical self-care. And I think Black and brown people, particularly Black people, because we have the worst health outcomes out of all people in this country. We have to practice radical self-care. Radical self-care. And it's like the song that the group Sweet Honey and the Rock sang, and it's called We Are the Ones. We are the ones we've been waiting for. You know, and my message to Black people is no one's going to come and save us. We have to save ourselves. And part of self-saving is taking care of your body. You know, it's like when you live in a system of racialized existence and a system of racism, white supremacy, it's like, it's not a system intended for you to be healthy. Like oppression and good health can't coexist. So what we put in our bodies is one of the few things that we can control. And when your body's functioning on an optimal level, you're going to feel better, and you're going to have, Mascha, you're going to have a better outlook on life, and it
better
helps.
mood, better gut, better energy. I mean, it affects so much. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. So I just want to kind of like close out. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been amazing. I'm very grateful for this conversation.
Thank you for sharing all of this. I mean, this is, I'm so grateful to you for bringing up this conversation, for, being willing to talk about all of this and to share your own experiences. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you. I just want to close out by asking, because unfortunately we're still in the midst of this pandemic and COVID-19. And, I think with all the information that's been given to us from what we know about the virus, the mask wearing in public is a good idea, good basic hygiene, hand washing, socially distancing. Those are all things that are good and that should be practiced, and to help keep everyone safe and stop the spread. However, my theory is, and it has been, and I maintain it, that, our first defense is our immune system. So if your immune system is not great, and when you have underlying conditions which can basically hurt your immune system or depress it, your outcome, if you come in contact with this virus, you could die, you could end up on a ventilator, and you can really have a tough time with the virus if you come in contact with it. I hope none of you do, but in case that happens. So what I think, nutrition is very important. It's something that can help heal our bodies. What are some of the things that we can do to strengthen our immune system? What are some of the foods we can eat? Because that's our first, my opinion, our first defense is our immune system. What are some of the healthy foods we can eat?
Totally agree with you. I mean, I think nutrition is the foundation of good immunity and good health. So these are, I go through so many of these things in my book, Eat Your Vitamins, but some of my top ones are some of the anti-inflammatory, immune supporting spices like turmeric and paprika and cayenne, some of these herbs and spices, these both fresh and dried compounds that you can use to flavor your food instead of salt or instead of a lot of sugar, using these things to add flavor. Then we have our really good lean protein. That is essential for a good immune system. So seafood, fish, things that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. So, sustainable, good seafood. And then lots of fruits and vegetables to get those antioxidants, because that helps to fight off invaders in the system. It helps to neutralize free radicals. It really helps to boost our health and our energy and our vitality. And that helps to support our gut health, which now there's so much more research that's come out that shows that so much of our immunity is actually in our gut. So having a healthy gut is really, really critical. And the best way to support gut health is by eating fresh fruits and vegetables. All of that fiber, those prebiotics that fuel and feed that good gut bacteria comes from fruits, vegetables, legumes, seeds, nuts, anything that has that fiber in it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to actually have to go back, and because I forgot my notepad, I should have been writing this stuff down. But I have to go back and rewind this video and get all that information. But excellent information. Can we just go back real quick to the definitions that you had of food desert,
Yes.
and justice? All of it. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
going to
people
read
need to
these
know
off
what that means.
because I want to make sure that I get them right. And
Yeah.
this is from a really great paper that I believe it came out of Berkeley. I'm going to send you the link so that we can also link it if anyone wants to read the full paper. It's really excellent. It talks about food injustice, food inequality, and solutions to some of these issues. So it also has these really important definitions of structural racialization, which is defined as a set of practices, cultural norms, and institutional arrangements that are both reflective of and simultaneously help to create and maintain racialized outcomes in society. It also says to eliminate structural racialization in the United States, one needs to analyze the ways that public and private institutions are structured and how government programs are administered and operate to reproduce racialized outcomes that harm marginalized communities.
Wow.
So then we have food deserts. Food deserts are areas, often in urban neighborhoods, that are void of fresh and healthy foods and where access to fresh and healthy foods is limited. And this is from a few years ago, so I think these numbers are higher now. But it says more than 23.5 million Americans, including 6.5 million children, live in low-income urban and rural neighborhoods that are more than 1 mile from the supermarket.
Wow.
And then
Amazing.
we have food insecurity, which is defined as access to adequate food, or here's what it says about food insecurity. Access to adequate food is a broader concept that includes the right of a person or community to purchase or produce his or her own food. For an individual or a community to produce their own food, they need access to land, seeds, water, and other resources. And to purchase healthy food, one needs both financial resources and accessibility, i.e., transportation and or close proximity to where healthy food is produced or sold.
Wow. That's basically all the definitions, the things that we raised earlier. And thank you for those definitions. I hope everyone watching right now that you have a better understanding of what, these things are, what food injustice is and what it's comprised of. So I think if those of you who are watching, if you want to improve your health, here's a way you can do it. You can go and get Mascha's book, Eat Your Vitamins. It's an outstanding book. Mascha, I mentioned this to you before that I have been looking for your book, but you just didn't publish it yet for like a year. Like this is an outstanding book. Can you just tell the audience more about what your book is about and give us more information?
It's Eat Your Vitamins instead of Take Your Vitamins. So essentially it's all about how we can get our vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all of the essential things that we need to be healthy from food instead of supplements. And I'm not anti-supplement. I think there's a place for them in a healthy diet. Oftentimes there's a need for them, especially at certain points in our life, like during pregnancy, for example. But so much of the time, people think that they can just take a pill or a powder and meet their needs, which isn't the case, right? Like what we were talking about earlier with immunity and getting antioxidants and the prebiotic fiber, and there's so many compounds in whole food, in real food, that you can't get in a supplement. So the book is all about which foods to eat, which vitamins you're going to get, some easy, healthy, quick recipes. So it's a really easy guide, and it's for the lay person. It's meant to be like something that's really accessible and easy to understand that people can just grab and flip open and reference.
Yeah, guys, this book is excellent. I call this my nutritional Bible, and I just have it out. And when I want to know, what I like about your book is that you let people know the amount of the vitamin, mineral, nutrient that you should have per day according to gender and age, and and this is exactly, like you said, it was written for the layperson. This is exactly what I had been looking for. Like, tell me how many cups of greens, leafy greens, I need to eat to meet my vitamin C, potassium requirement, you know, or, you know, so and this book does that. And as Mascha stated earlier, you know, there's some great recipes at the end of each book, and it's just a fantastic book. And one, if you care about your health, get Mascha's book. It will be a great addition to your library, and also opening up and giving you more of an understanding of the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that you need in order to stay and remain healthy. Mascha, where can people, I just want to close this out, where can people find you online? I know you have a pretty big Instagram following. You have some resources online. You just launched a food product, Mini Fish, right?
Yes, the new food product is minifish.co, minifish.co. That's the website for that, where we're doing a pre-order special right now. And then, yes, on Instagram, I'm nomadista_nutrition. My website is Nomadista Nutrition. If you just look up my name, it'll all come up as well. So, yeah, and the book is on Amazon. It's everywhere books are sold, but Amazon's probably the easiest place to get it.
Okay, great. I'm going to make sure I put a link in the notes to your book, so people can go out and get it very easily. Just click and go out and purchase Mascha's book. Thank you so much for doing this. And, you know, I hope it's a blessing to everyone who out in the audience, if, you know, just wanting to learn more about nutritional injustice. And I just want to encourage everyone to be happy and healthy. And thank you, Mascha, for doing this. Also, share this video, subscribe to my channel, and follow Mascha on Instagram and get that book. All right, guys, take care. God bless.
Thank you so much, Sherry.
Thank you for doing this. It's been a blessing. All right, guys. Take care. God bless. And I will see you in the next video.